welcome to another episode of Drew's Brew Reviews. The beer I have this week is another collaboration from Stone. For some reason, I seem to keep going back to those ones, but this one is the Stone Farking Wheaton w00tstout. Now, the reason it's called that is because it's a collaboration between Stone's co-founder, Greg Koch, however you want to say his name, Fark.com's Drew Curtis, I believe, and Will Wheaton of course, Toy Soldiers and Flubber fame, you know what he's best known from, and they all collaborated to create a magnificent, hopefully, imperial stout. This is a wheat and rye beer with brewed with wheat malt, but what makes this interesting is they also brewed it with pecans. Now, what makes pecans interesting in this is that the oil that they give off tends to be a very buttery, savory kind of quality to it, so it'll make an interesting addition to the beer. Now, this beer is also 1/4 barrel aged. Now, probably the reason that they did the 1/4 barrel aging is when you do the barrel aging, it can give kind of the vanilla notes and also kind of a buttery quality. So I imagine adding the pecans to that, if they did a full-on barrel aging, it might be an extremely buttery type beer. So I will just show this off here. This is Drew Curtis, I believe. Then we have Will Wheaton, and then we have Greg Koch. I'm going to pour this one out into a snifter, which I feel will be the appropriate beer glass for this. Since it's a little bigger, I'm also going to try this in a pint glass. Pours out pretty nice there. See, nice dark brown color. It's a little bit of that brown oiliness clinging to the sides. Not a very thick head that came up on this one. Much lower than probably what I was expecting. Its ABV is 13%. Now, normally this beer costs between $9 and $12. Some people can find it cheaper. I'd say the temperature for this probably around 55 degrees, where you want to start, let it warm up, you know, as you drink. It was a limited release beer, so its availability is kind of marked down to that, but I'm curious, assuming that this sold well, that we might see other collaborations from potentially Drew Curtis and Will Wheaton with Stone. Alright, we're gonna check out the aroma of this dark one. There's kind of a sweeter earthiness to it, a little nut. Strong, like molasses raisin, actually, I get from this. There's a little bit of roastiness there. I don't know if I'd necessarily even say it's not on the coffee side of roasty, it's more on the dark sugar roasty with that kind of malt, real malty, real sweet. There's actually is a little bit of vanilla there, so there's a little bit of that the bourbon barrel age quality coming through. The vanilla is a little lost with all the other sweetness that's going on in here with all the malt and that really kind of dark molasses quality it has, but it's definitely a very nice aroma. Might turn some people off that aren't into either sweeter beers or the sweeter smelling ones, because this is very, very rich in its sugary qualities. Hopefully it backs off maybe a little bit when you actually try the beer. Well, the wheat malt definitely adds a nice, rich mouthfeel, real creamy, real heavy, nice. Yeah, definitely I would say on the chewier side of even stout beers. Yeah, dark burnt quality, it's a little bit bitter up front, more of a roasty bitterness, not a hot bitterness. I think you can get that earthy nut quality that's there. It's not. There's a little bit of butteriness to the mouthfeel, but not so much in the taste. That roastiness actually kind of overruns any buttery that you're going to be getting from the pecans, and it does become more on the savory side of the pecan. You might be able to say with this that there's a hint of cocoa or chocolate to it, and some of that roastiness and some of that sweetness does come through in kind of a bitter cocoa way, kind of malty raisin middle to it that wraps around the pecans, that earthiness that's there, that savory quality, which actually keeps it, I think, from getting to be too sweet. Now, the finish for this does finish a little bourbon barrel. I think that's where that heat and that warmth is coming from. That's where the booziness is. Again, not offensive booziness, but it's definitely there. It's warming. It's a 13% beer. Very drinkable for the level that it is for a 13%. I can't complain about it. I love the mouthfeel of it. I love that roasty, malty, molasses kind of quality that's in there, even that little bit of raisin that happens. The booze on the finish isn't too bad, isn't too strong. It adds a nice warm finish to it. That this would be a fantastic by the fire beer, or if you're outside, whatever, on a crisp evening, that, yes. I had this out of a pint glass. The aroma for it was definitely much weaker than this. You got a little bit of the kind of roasty molasses. The sugar really backed off from it, but the flavor of it was still good, but the booziness came through so much more. It had much more of a tangy raisin finish with a real strong boozy hit, and I think it's much more mellow in this snifter. I would recommend the snifter out of this. It's a more enjoyable experience. You get to taste a little bit more of the subtleties of this beer, and there actually is a decent amount going on for this, with the pecans actually come through really, really nicely. I absolutely give this a recommend if you can find it. It was a limited run, came out a little while ago, so by the time this comes out, it might be a little bit tougher to find depending on where you're at and how popular craft beers are. So for Stone's Woot Stout, cheers. For more beer reviews and episodes, you can go to pintsofinterest.net, on Facebook at facebook.com/pintsofinterest. You can also follow us on Twitter at Pints of Interest for 140 character beer reviews.